with DCVA. We have a special guest today. His name is Doug Wechsler, and you might find his little box on the screen. He's got a toad friend sitting on his shoulder, if you can scroll through and find that. He's going to be sharing his book, Hidden Life of a Toad, with us. And the really cool thing about this book, you know, some books have authors and illustrators. Doug is the author, but he also took all of the photography, all the pictures that we're going to see. So we'll get to hear about that too. And I think I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that we can see Doug a little bigger.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Hey, everybody.
And if you guys don't know already about using speaker view, you can set your screen to speaker view so that when the person who is talking is really big on the screen. That way you can see, you know, a better picture of them. All right, so hello, Doug. Thank you so much for being with us. I appreciate you coming and sharing your passion with us.
Thanks, Aurora. Before I get started, let me tell you a little bit about myself. I worked at the Academy of Natural Sciences for 28 years, you know, the Dinosaur Museum, and I was in charge of the world's largest collection of bird photographs. So as part of that job, I had to travel to jungles, rainforests around the world and take pictures of birds. I've also been a lifelong naturalist. I've been interested in bugs and birds and toads and things since I was knee-high to a grasshopper. So, but now I'm concentrating more on writing books, and I write the books and I photograph them. And I like to write books because I like to share you know, my knowledge about nature with kids. And the good thing about it is when I write the books, I have to do a lot of research, and I always learn more about the topics I already know quite a bit about. So it's always fun to write the books. In photography, photographing the books allows me to spend a lot of time studying the animals that I'm writing about, because I have to wait and wait and wait for those animals to do what I want them to do. You know,
that was going to be one of my questions for you. That was one of my questions for you, Doug, was you know, tips on how to take good wildlife photography. And I had a feeling it was going to involve a lot of waiting.
It usually involves a lot of waiting and being patient, and also learning about the animal so you know where to go. You have to know, for example, when the toads are going to breed. If you want to get pictures of the toads laying eggs, you have to learn the calls of the animals. You have to learn a lot of things to get good photographs. Now, toads breed in March and April, and my birthday just happens to be at the beginning of April. So it sort of became a ritual for me to go out in early April and take pictures of toads. And that was part of my inspiration for doing this book. The other thing that got me to write the book was we heard that toads were getting run over near a reservoir in Roxborough in Philadelphia. So my wife and I went there and learned more about it, found out where the toads were going, and we helped to establish something called Toad Detour, which is now run by the Schuylkill Center, and they've saved thousands of toads by stopping traffic on that little street when the toads are migrating to and from the pond.
Wow, I've heard of that program. I did not know that you had helped start that.
We helped out at the beginning, and we were the ones who figured out exactly where the toads were going.
And anyone can sign up, right, to help out?
Right. So
and volunteer?
Sometime in March, they would be signing people up.
Very cool.
Keep your eye out on the Schuylkill Center website. Now, before I actually read my book, I'm going to show you a very quick video to get you warmed up. So let's see how this works.
Hey, did you see that new book for human tadpoles called The Hidden Life of a Toad? Yeah, it was fun reading. reminds me of the time as a tadpole when my right arm popped right through my skin.
Man, this is the most detailed set of photos of amphibian metamorphosis I've ever seen.
There's active information too.
I'm headed straight for Doug's website to order a signed copy.
Little shameless self-promotion. Okay, the hidden life of a toad. April sunshine warms a shallow pond. In the water, strings of jelly twist over, under, around. What is this tangle of stuff? It looks like a pile of spaghetti. Day 1. Inside the strings, tiny round eggs are trapped. Egg after egg after egg. Each egg is a little black ball, the embryo, with more jelly around it. One embryo would fit just inside this little O. Not 10, not 100, but thousands of embryos are lined up in each string. Day 3, 2 days pass. The embryos grow and take shape. Each little black ball stretches. Day 5, one embryo wiggles. It wriggles, it jiggles about. A tiny tadpole slides out, free of the jelly. It has no mouth. It has no eyes. It cannot even swim. It waits on top of the coiled jelly string. Its brothers and sisters by the thousands struggle loose from their eggs. Day 9. What a difference 4 days make. Now the tadpole has eyes for seeing. It has a big tail for swimming. It has a mouth for munching morsels of rotting leaves. And for breathing, feathery gills, those little frills behind the head, pull oxygen from the water. And you can see the gills here, these just little fingers sticking out from the side of the head. Day 12, skin has grown over the graceful gills. Water flows in the mouth, over the gills, and spews out a hole in the skin called the spiracle. So the water goes in the mouth, over the gills, which are now under the skin, and out this round hole called the spiracle, which is only on the left side. Now the tadpole is fat and round in front, with a long, skinny tail behind. It has the familiar tadpole shape. Day 20, tiny tadpoles school at the edge of the pond. The water is warm here and too shallow for big, hungry fish. Tadpoles grow fast in warm water. Day 27, legs grow out, toes are forming. Why would a tadpole need legs and toes? Day 41, arms bulge behind the mouth. Look at that, underneath the skin, we can see the arm here. Here's the hand. And what happens next? Pop, the right arm breaks through the skin. And then, psh, the left arm pushes out through the spiracle. Here you can see the round hole where the water used to come out when it was breathing. That's the spiracle. Now the leg comes out there. With 4 limbs, the miracle of metamorphosis begins. It's the big change from tadpole to toadlet. Day 45, the tadpole changes inside and out. Its stomach swells. The long coiled intestine shortens. Lungs grow. Legs get strong and eyes bulge. The mouth widens. The tadpole is now a toadlet. It moves to the shore. The toadlet's tongue lengthens, its tail shrinks and disappears. But the tail is not wasted. It is recycled. It breaks down inside the body, releasing energy. The toadlet grows longer and stronger for the journey ahead. Day 55. Time to look for a home. The toadlet goes hopping, hopping, hopping through the forest. It's hardly bigger than a pea. Day 70. A good home for a toad has plenty of bugs and worms, rocks to hide under, leaves for shade, loose soil that's easy to dig. The toadlet eats and grows in the green garden. On hot summer days, it buries itself to stay cool. In fall, it digs down deep into the dirt, and all through the long, cold winter, it stays buried. Day 1097. Now it's 3 years old, and it's come out for its third time. By the third spring, the toadlet has grown up. Now she's a big warty toad, a fat female full of eggs. Warm rains seep deep, creeping into the soil where the toad waits in her winter hideout. Suddenly, she has an urge to travel. Time to hop, hop, hop to the pond where she was born. A male toad trills from day into night. He sits in the shallow part of the pond, sending a signal. Come see me. The distant female listens to his ringing sound, his ringing song. Day 1098. Night falls. The female hops, hops, then plops into the pond. The male swims onto her back. Now, how many toads do you see here? Here's the female. Here's the male on her back. And here's another male trying to get this guy off so he can mate with her. The male swims onto her back. Whack! He kicks another male who tries to grab her. Hold on tight. She carries him through the night until she lays eggs in 2 long jelly streams. There's the long jelly streams of eggs. The male fertilizes the eggs as they come out. The strings swell as the jelly fills with water. Now the female is no longer so plump. She climbs out of the pond and hops away. He sings, but the male stays. He sings again. And waits for another female. Day 1099. The female heads home, hopping, 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 back to the pond. Those little black balls, the embryo, grow. Then one day they wiggle, they wriggle, they jiggle about. Thousands of tadpoles slide out, free of the jelly. A new cycle of life begins. Okay, well, I'm not going to read all the back matter to you, but there's plenty of information here for you to get later. But we will talk a little bit about the difference between a frog and a toad. Hold on just a second here. Okay, so on our left here, we have a brown toad. And let's look at some of the special features of the toad. It has kind of a blunt snout, so the nose is very short. It has these big bulges behind the eyes, which are glands called the parotid glands. And it has warty skin. You see the warts here on the skin. They're not real warts like we have warts, but they're bumps on the skin. And the skin looks kind of...
Sorry, Doug. I was just going to ask about the saying that, you know, holding a frog or a toad will give you warts. So can you confirm or tell us that that's not true?
That's not true.
Okay,
you can't get warts from holding toads.
good to know.
Yeah. So they also have very dry looking skin. And now a frog has this pointy nose usually. The skin doesn't have any big bumps. It might have ridges like this. It looks kind of wet usually. But of course, for every rule, there's an exception. And so let's look at, oh, also toads hop and frogs leap. Toads have kind of short legs, so they don't have real long leaps. You can see the short legs of a hopping toad. And these frogs in the water, you can see they have very long legs, and that helps them make long jumps. Okay, so here's our little quiz. Frog or toad? If you think it's a frog, hold on. I need to get some, sorry about that. Okay. If you think it's a frog, you can raise your hand. If you think it's a toad, rub your head. Okay, is this a frog or a toad? Good. Okay, it's got that huge gland. This is called a cane toad, and they're actually very poisonous. So if a dog eats one, for example, and doesn't spit it up, it could kill the toad. Kill both the frog and both the toad and the dog.
Now, does that toad live around here, Doug?
This toad doesn't live here. It lives in Central and South America, but people have brought it all over the world, and now it's found in. I've seen it in the Philippines, and I've seen it in. Well, I haven't been to Australia, but they're a real menace in Australia because they eat the native toads.
Wow, so they'll eat other toads in Australia.
Yeah, well, and frogs and lizards and things. They're big toads. Okay, frog or toad? Okay, yep, it's a frog. So see, it's got kind of a pointy snout, doesn't have any big bumps on it. And there's actually two of them mating here. Frog or toad? Okay, this is a toad. Look at the big gland behind it. This is a toad that lives in the desert, and its skin does look kind of wet. But otherwise it has a short nose, and this toad has poisonous skin too. You don't want to lick the toad. Frog or toad?
Frog.
Frog, yes. And this is a green frog, and it's one that we'll find around here. You can find it in the Darby Creek watershed. It goes kind of when it sings. Okay, well, now let's see. Does anybody have any questions about frogs, or toads rather, or the book, or anything related to that?
It looks like Carly has a
Okay.
question.
Carly.
Are there were there originally both frogs and toads, or were they like kind of did two species develop over time?
Oh, well, toads are really a family of frogs, and they've all evolved from a common ancestor a long time ago. They've been around for many millions of years. So I think the answer to your question is they all came from a similar toad-like animal.
And is there a way to tell whether a frog or a toad is poisonous?
Not a safe way. No, you could read about it. Generally, you don't want to eat frog or toad skin. The meat of most frogs or toads is probably edible, but I wouldn't try it with all of them. There's one type of toad, actually, it's one type of frog, the poison dart frog, that lives in Western Colombia, that's so toxic that if you just touch it, you could have bad results. So don't touch that one.
But that would Doug, that happen with any frogs or toads around here? Like if we were
No.
out exploring, would we ever feel like we needed to be cautious?
Well, you should be careful when you're handling toads, just not to put your fingers in your eyes, your mouth. But I've never heard of anybody being poisoned by any of the frogs or toads in this area. In general, it's a good idea to wash your hands after you handle them. Yeah. Any other questions?
I think I see Callus hands up.
Ella?
How long have frogs and toads been around?
Oh, that's a good question. You know, I don't know exactly, but it's been more than 100 million years.
A
That's-
very, very,
you know,
very long time.
I need to look into that. You know, it's a question I should be able to answer.
Let's see, is that, do I see any other hands up? Is Sahar and Almog, do I see a hand up or no? Okay,
Yeah.
nope, okay. Well, I'm wondering, Doug, if you could, I have a question.
Yeah.
I was wondering if you could tell us what we could do to help frogs and toads. Like if we care about frogs and toads, what can we do to help them live happily, happy,
Okay.
healthy lives?
Okay, so it's very important to keep our watersheds clean. That is to keep stuff from going into the watershed. So don't dump garbage on the street. Be careful what you put down your sink, because some of that will end up in the watershed. You can also keep the forest clean. Don't if there's dirty stuff in the woods, like if you don't clean up after your dog, the water can get polluted, and then the streams get polluted. And so we need to keep the streams clean so that the tadpoles have a happy childhood, that sort of thing. And if you're handling any frogs or toads, make sure your hands are wet before you grab them, especially for the frogs.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's good to know. And I noticed in your book, you talked a little bit about a good home for a frog. Maybe you want to just touch on that again, if anyone wanted to kind of welcome frogs to their yard. I hear they
Sure.
eat a lot of bugs, so they would be nice friends to have in the backyard.
Yeah, a toad can eat up to 10,000 bugs in a season. And if it eats 10,000, those would be very small bugs, but that's a lot of bugs. May help keep your garden healthy. So good things for toads are some loose soil where they can dig. They need places to hide. So it could be under a board or under dense growth of plants. They like a little bit of water. If they have a big tub of water, they might even breed in your yard, but you have to be careful about mosquitoes in that case. And then make sure you don't have any pesticides in your yard. Don't spray your plants with pesticides. And if you plant with native plants, you get more insects and the toads will be happier. There'll be more for them to eat. So those are all good things for toads. So,
Nice. I've been adding a lot of native plants to my yard this year. A lot of time at home means I've been gardening. So that's good to hear.
Oh, I wanted to just show you a couple of my other books, if anybody's interested. And my website has more information on toads. There's a toad section. But here I did a book. My first book was called Bizarre Bugs. And I did Bizarre Birds. And I did 3 series of books on the really wild life of frogs and the really wild life of snakes and the really wild life of birds of prey. And then a book about vernal pools called Frog Heaven, Life in a Vernal Pool. and Marvels in the Muck, Life in the Salt Marshes. So those are all things that you might want to read. You probably can find them in the library.
Yeah, they look great. And are they all your photography as well? All of your books?
Pretty much. There are some other photographs in there.
Okay. And you traveled a lot to get, is that true that you
Oh.
traveled and to study different wildlife?
I've spent a lot of time in other parts of the world, and recently my wife and I have spent a lot of time in Ecuador, where we work as volunteers with the Hoco Toco Foundation, which is a conservation foundation that has big bird preserves, places where wildlife can live without being harmed by people. So,
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Did anyone else have any questions
any more questions?
for Doug about frogs, toads, or even about the wild bugs or birds that he wrote books about as well? Did I see a hand? Oh, yep. Patty. There's someone in the screen named Patty. You can go ahead and unmute if you'd like to ask your question.
Go ahead.
If we're able to find toads and frogs at the willows,
At the Willows?
Radnor,
Oh, I guess I'm not familiar with the Willows in Radnor.
I can answer that question
Good.
for you. You can absolutely find frogs and toads all throughout the Willows woods. You have to be careful, and you don't want to take them out of their habitat, but you can find them and you can see them, but don't take them home.
okay.
Okay. Well,
Yeah, and I hope that you guys will go exploring and looking for frogs and toads after learning more about them. And would they be out this time of year, Doug, or is it better to look in the spring?
the toads are out, but they're mostly active at night. I see them every now and then hopping around in the day. But the best time to see them is at the end of March and beginning of April, when the males are singing, and you can just follow them right to where they're singing. They're pretty persistent. They sound like this. Okay, can everybody trill like a toad?
You can take yourself off mute if you'd like to trill
Yeah.
and let us hear it.
They can't see you.
Nice. Nice. That's something we can practice.
Well, I want to thank you all for listening to me and for coming to this online event. It's been really nice to see you all, and I hope I'll get to see you some other time. Maybe we can talk about other creatures like flies or insects.
My grandma wants to ask a question.
Oh, another question.
My grandma.
Go ahead.
My grandma wants to ask a question.
My question is, where I used to work, they used to have frog leg dinners. What kind of frogs are they eating when they have the frog leg dinners?
They may be
You know?
bullfrogs, probably bullfrogs, because they're the biggest frogs that live
Really?
in the United States. And so they have the biggest legs. Yeah.
Oh,
Um,
have you ever tried them?
no, I don't like to eat frogs. So, no.
I can't say I have either. It doesn't sound appetizing to me.
But neither. No.
I'm a vegetarian. I don't eat anything.
I've eaten some other weird stuff, but fortunately, nobody's ever served me frogs.
All right, everyone. If no one else has any questions, I was just going to end today by saying thank you to Doug. Thank you for being here with us. And I'm just going to put this up here for you, just to say that's actually, you know, my girls that in that picture there and a friend going out exploring. And I hope that maybe you've been inspired to go exploring and spending some time outside, especially now that the weather's beautiful. And I hope you come across some frogs and toads and other things. Thank you for being here. I hope you'll join us in another program in a couple weeks. And thank you, Doug, so much. We really appreciate your time. And it's a wonderful book, beautiful photography. I have to say my favorite part is that arm popping out. that photo is really, really awesome. I learned something new, so thank you.
Okay, it's been a lot of fun. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doug.
You're welcome.
Bye.
Thank you, Doug.
That's nice, right? I like that.
Make us get
How do
the
I-
whole screen for ourselves.
I don't know how to. Oh.